Hello Houston, we have a problem. How we doing, folks? It's been, of course, a long while since I've made a video. I appreciate everybody's patience who's been asking and this and that. This video is going to be about welding machines and I don't know what I'm going to call it, welding machine woes, something like that. It's going to be about welders, welding machines. Almost everything you see here, except for one that's just slightly out of frame to my right here, are mine. And these are the machines I use and have assembled strategically, largely due to the, my space confines here and what I need to have to make all my, to make my thing go, so to speak here. So I'm just going to go over that. I know I promised some time ago to, some people have asked about, especially my my large Hobart MIG machine. It's not just a MIG machine, but the one kind of a Frankenstein machine that I kind of put together, stuff like that. So I figured I'll do that. But what prompted this was the fact that, again, if you've seen my videos, you've seen this machine. This is my, whatever you want to call it, shop workhorse. My Heliarc machine, again, I do, steel, stainless, any Heliarc TIG welding happens off of this machine. And I was using it recently, and it well, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like if you've ever welded with a machine and you've overrun the duty cycle. I guess that was the reaction I was getting from it. And naturally, it gets cold. If you overrun the duty cycle of a machine, it tends to, again, the saying is that it runs cold. It starts to get squirrely and back out a little bit, So that was seemingly what was happening. That was the characteristics of the problem. But I knew that wasn't it, because that's going to be that's the sad part of this. I know this machine, like a comfortable pair of slippers that you put on at the end of the day. And when I hit any of those switches, or I turn a dial and I squeeze that pedal, or I know exactly what's going to happen. I've been welding off this machine for, I don't know, clearly more than a decade. So I know what to expect, and I can tell if it's that a foot pedal is going bad or something like that. And that wasn't the characteristics. Again, it was like it was beginning to go cold, and I knew that wasn't the case because I was doing, I was on aluminum, but I wasn't, it wasn't a very high, it was 1/8" aluminum, and it wasn't, wasn't anything that I was really, beating it or overusing it. So I knew that wasn't the problem, but I tried to stop, reset. And of course, when these things happen, they happen late at night, of course. Oh, and the job you've promised, you've still got another dozen or more feet to Heliarc, and you've got to have this thing for the customer in the morning, because they really need it. So anyway, so that was my situation with this. I'm going to stop the camera, and I'm going to do my best to try to tie all this together. I'm going to focus on something else with the camera, try to take these things one at a time. So that's where I'm at with that. That's why you see it here, not in its normal spot over here, tucked under the rack here where it normally is. Because I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Like I said, it still welds. It's just, like I said, it welds like you're welding on a machine that's gone cold on you. So anyway, let me stop the camera and I'll show you a couple other things, and we'll take it from there. Actually, you know what? Before I go any further, if it sounds like I'm standing in the background of an ongoing concert, your ears are not deceiving you. As you know, I'm sure I've mentioned, my shop I'm in the Meadowlands area, New Jersey, New York border there, and I'm literally less than a quarter of a mile from the Giants Stadium, Giants and Jets Stadium down here, and again in the Meadowlands. And this is Memorial Day weekend, and they've been having, I guess, concerts and stuff. So if you're hearing that heavy drum, bass beat, and music background, that's what that is. Sorry, I apologize for that. So anyway, let me stop the camera and we'll. Okay, so actually let me start here first before I go over to the other side. This, again, as anybody who's watched my videos, you've seen it in a lot of my videos. This is my, my regular welding machine here. Again, this is an old Airco. It is a transformed machine. Obviously, I'm not exactly sure. I've had it for a long time. Again, I'm sure you've all seen it if you've watched my videos. It's transformed only, nothing fancy. As you can see here, there's, the controls are very simple. You either have high frequency, or you don't, or you can, again, the simplest, start, off, start, or continuous, so that's it pretty much. And again, like I said, I've used this reliably for years, years and years. So again, I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Now I'll bring you over to the other side and show you what's over here. All right, now here in the usual spot where you would have seen my Airco, there is now this machine. This is it's called a Hobart tigwave 350 AC/DC. It is a square wave machine, which is really great. It's from I think it's 1999 was its build date. It is a square wave machine. It is digital. It has some, it has features, of course, of the much more modern machines. I can adjust my balance and things like that on this. Things that, well, again, all the things that you would expect in a square wave machine. It's nice, has crater fill option and things like that. And again, it's again late 90s. It is all the bells and whistles that you would have of that era machine. Again, like I said, it has balance, and you can adjust your frequency for more cleaning or more penetration and things of that nature. And so the story begins. I had, I still have the damn cooler. I had seen this machine, I think it was on eBay, and it was advertised. Let me show you here. It's got a brand new foot pedal that came with it. I had seen this machine. I like you guys, I cruise eBay and Craigslist and some of the .gov sites and things like that. I'm always looking, if something's, at the wrong price, maybe I'll look for it, and I'll see if I can grab it. So, I had seen this machine, and I forgot what they were looking for, but the person who listed it said that they didn't know if it worked, or that, they bought the machine and then they bought the pedal later on brand new to match it, but it didn't work properly or something to that effect, and whatnot. So they were listing it for sale or for auction, whatever. So I'm not exactly sure what they were looking for. I think they were looking for $500 or $600 for it. Certainly I wasn't interested in that. I let it drive by, but I guess I kept it in my watch list. So it kept showing up, so some time had went by, and I noticed the price had dropped and this and that. So again, I continued to let it drive by, and I eventually, the long and the short of it was, I was able to make a deal on it. And I kind of figured I knew what it was. Now, I don't know anything, all my experience with, of course, is up to this point has been with sine wave, not square wave. And I have no idea how they get from a sine wave to a square wave, aside from it has to be done electronically. So I'm to understand that most of the problems with a square wave machine is, of course, the electronics, the board, you know, that printed circuits or whatever the hell those little chips and all that is on there. So I naturally figured that that was going to be the problem with this machine. So again, like I said, I was able to make a deal on it, and I went and got it, you know, fully expecting to have to, you know, do a board. And I did kind of, Hobart still has some, what would you say, some presence in the welding machine thing. They don't make any machines. In fact, they didn't make this one. But I got in touch with them, and you know, and I told them what the character, and they said, yeah, it's probably a board issue and this and that, and to expect to have to get a board. So I said, okay, but they don't have a board. But whatever, you know, I was able to ascertain that yes, a board could be either rebuilt or got for this thing and this and that. So I made my purchase based on that. So so I bought the machine very cheaply, and I brought it back, fully anticipating having to put a board. And like I said, the guy, when I spoke with him at Hobart, very helpful, by the way, you know, he explained that you're probably going to expect to have to pay $600 or more for the board, and of course, it didn't seem like something I would want to tackle myself, even if I could source it. So I knew I was going to have to bring it to a service to be repaired. So that's pretty much what I did. I got it back here, and I did some very cursory checks, and it was exactly that. You know, it came on, it showed power, you know, I had a very faint arc, this, that, the other. But again, I knew I had to send it out to a place to have it repaired. And that's what I did. And they were able to have the board rebuilt. So anyway, so I got myself into now a square wave machine, and I think I'm in for about $1,000 essentially, which, you know, that's fine. I'm in a 350 amp square wave machine, you know, for that, you know, like I said, for about $1,000, I'm perfectly okay with that. So what I planned to do was once I got it back, was I was going to test it extensively. Because again, as you can see, my space restrictions here don't allow me to really keep multiple machines here. Everything kind of has to be usable, and you know, I don't have extra space hanging around. So like I said, I wanted to test it. I tested it against the Airco, you know. So I never quite got around to that, and as I said, I was using the Airco and it went bad on me, and you know, so I had to finish this job. So I quickly brought this in and hooked it up, and again, this all happened around midnight and such not, so you know, so I had to put it together. So I've been using it now for a few weeks, and again, it was just kind of hodgepodge put together. In fact, I just threw it on that dolly that you see there, and I just threw the tanks behind it, you know, just to get me going. But so I've been using it, you know, and it's great. You know, I like the machine. It's enjoyable. But maybe when I move on to the next, you know. Now, here's the thing. The main reason I was interested in this machine, and again, as you all know, I am an old school, if you want to call it that, traditionalist, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to most things. The reason I was interested in this machine is because it is a transformed machine. I'm not that I'm bad-mouthing the inverters or anything like that. I'm not. I've never really sat in on a shop grade inverter machine, so I really don't know. It wouldn't be fair for me to make that assertion. So, but again, I like transformed machines. So, so I, you know, again, that's what I was looking for. So that was why I went forward with this. And it's a very traditional, aside from, that's, again, I guess that's how they're able to shrink it down, is that, you know, to put yourself in that class of machine, again, they're doing it with electronics, but it does come first through transformers. There's 3 transformers in there. So, you know, you get your 2 transformers, I guess, for your legs that come in, and then if I'm not mistaken, that all comes, and then it goes through that, what is it called, a varactor transformer or something. Anyway, so that was one of my primary concerns at this time anyway, was to stay in a transformed machine, and it is, so that's good. Okay, so anyway, I know I ramble like crazy. Anyway, as I say, so now I am obviously squarely, no pun intended, I am squarely in this machine due to the fact that the Airco, you know, kind of, well, I'm not sure. So again, like I said, what I wanted to do was I know very well, like I said, how the Airco reacts. That's again, like an old comfortable pair of slippers. I wanted to put this thing through its paces before I decided to make a switch to go just to this machine, you know, and then maybe stick the Airco out in the shed or whatever. But again, like I said, that wasn't possible because of the, you know, what happened. So now, like I said, I'm in this and I'm using it, and I don't know what the fate of the Airco is going to be. I haven't had time to do troubleshooting on my own, so I'm not sure. But yeah, what my plan was to essentially, you know, I guess take this thing and, you know, get some nice, maybe half to half aluminum and drop a brick on the pedal and see how it would go, you know, see if it would stand up to the abuse, you know, again. And again, that's another part of the reason I like to stay on a transformed machine. I like, you know, the reliability of that, and I like the proven design of that. So that was my intention. And I've done that with other machines. Okay, so that's going to lead me into this machine that I'm going to go over with you, the one I kind of put together, kind of a Frankenstein thing or whatever. And that, as opposed to, if anyone who's been watching my videos, you've seen for a long time now these Hobart sheet metal covers here propped up against the sander. Well, it was a similar thing that you know, a head-to-head test that I did, and that was how I got to where I am. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, let's move on to this. This is my Hobart. This is my, for lack of a better, let's call it my large MIG machine. This is the one that, again, I kind of put together. This is, it's called a Hobart Megaflex 450 RVS, and again, that's the machine, that's the Hobart feeder, and then I run it with this Miller. This is an S62 Miller feeder, and you can see the arrangement I have here. I just kind of stacked them, as you see here. This machine has been in a few of my videos as well, obviously. This was the one I did the feeding, the wire feeding of the aluminum through the, I did it through the Miller feeder, but again, this has always been the power source. Now, this is not just a MIG, it's CV and CC. And again, it's 450 amps. I think that's a very conservative rating. This thing is just amazing. This thing is just, it's just awesome. It's one of the smoothest stick machines I've ever used. This has pretty much taken over any stick work now that I do in the shop. I do off of this machine, and of course it air arcs like nobody's business. I mean, you can just go ahead and stick a 3/8 carbon in there, plug the air in, and go ahead and plows through the metal. I mean, it's amazing. And it MIGs amazingly as well once you go in the CV mode. In fact, here, let me zoom in. It's actually got, it's got two ranges here. You've got, you know, it starts over here. You can come down by switching your leads into this one. You can have a low of 50 to 150 amps, and then by moving over to here, you can go from 100 amps to, so it's got two ranges. It's amazing. It's just awesome. It looks like we're having a little bit of thunder here. So anyway, yeah, this is just, man, this is just a great machine, and I'm very happy with it. Now, to start to that, this all has to do with what you see here. This, again, this piece of sheet metal here, these two pieces of sheet metal here, from this Hobart. It's called Arcmaster 501. In fact, here's the third. This is the top. I used it to make the shelf to put this feeder on top of here. So I'll explain about this now. Okay, so this was some years back. I had some jobs waiting that I needed some heavy MIG capability for, and I didn't have, at the time, I didn't have a heavy MIG machine. Of course, you've always seen me use my my Millermatic 252, and actually before that replaced the Millermatic 200. Amazingly reliable, wonderful machines. I love them. But again, they're good to a point. You're not gonna, you're not gonna be able to squirt, heavy wire through that with, at high amperage. So I had some years back. In fact, they were old Aircos. I had a couple of them. Large, 400 amps and 500 amp CV Airco machines, power sources, and feeders that I could use for heavy MIG work. And like I said, I had some jobs scheduled. I think I was going to be possibly re-earing a bucket. I had a mass job on a huge forklift I had to do. In other words, I think I had some floor. Anyway, I needed a large MIG machine, so I quickly started scrambling and looking for one, and this came up, this Hobart, and I got it very, very cheaply. I got it again, I think for a couple $100, but it was just a machine. I needed a feeder, so I went searching, looking around to see if I could score a feeder, and that's where all of this comes in. This machine, this feeder, and this feeder. So like I said, I needed a feeder, and this is where all of this comes in, as I said. So I was looking on eBay, and pretty much just for a feeder, and I stumbled across this, what you see here, this machine and this feeder. I was searching for feeders, and this, yes, I have an LN25 I can use, but again, I wanted to do a whole setup. So, believe me, it didn't look, it's yellow now. When I looked at this thing, on, the pictures of this thing on eBay, it was black and gray. It was just all sooted up and everything like that. But I saw it, and I saw the feeder, and I said, well, there's obviously a very heavy, that'll easily take 500. I think these feeders are rated for like 600 amps or something. So I said, well, that'll be good, and the thing was dirt cheap. Had a bid of $19.95, and I said, well, you know what, and it was being listed by our local transit, whatever you'd call it, transit authority. It wasn't too far from me. It was only a few towns away, and they have a garage there and an annex. This is where the trains come in. So I shot a question out, but I didn't get a response back. So the bid that was on it was like $19.95. So I said, let me see if I can put a bid. Let me figure, I'll go up to $50 on this thing. And if I can just score it and grab the feeder, hey, what have I lost, So there was one bid, like I say, at $19.95. I think I put a bid in, again, I think I put $50 on it, but it only bid it to, I think it was just to get me beyond what was there. I think it went up around $21.50, and that was where it ended. Next thing I know, I got an email, oh, you won this. Okay, great. So again, I'm looking at this purely from the perspective of getting a feeder to run with this machine. So I got the notification that I had won the bid. Great. So I go to pick it up, and I show up, and they finally got a fella, to dig everything out for me. They got a forklift, they got the thing out. And I said to the fella, I says, gee, as he was loading it, I says, you know what, I said, I bought it just thinking I would get, to get the feeder. I says, do you know if the feeder works? And he says, man, I work in that department. He says, the whole thing works. He says, it's a great machine. He says, there's nothing wrong. Now, they purposely disconnect wires and things like that to disable it, I guess probably for liability reasons, because you buy it with the understanding that it's for salvage. He says, but there's nothing wrong with it. He says, the whole thing works. The machine works, the feeder works. He says, it's great. It's just that the budget allowed us to get some new equipment, and, it's been replaced and it's been sitting. Okay, fine. So I said, well, all right, I'll take the whole thing, and they spooned it onto my truck for me, and away I went back to the shop here.
So now I'm confident. So the first thing I did was I got it back to the shop, and I, of course, you know, took the feeder and cleaned it up, blew it out as best I could. I put 110 volts, it's a 110 volt feeder. I put 110 volts to it, and sure enough, I kicked the contactor, wheel started turning, motor started feeding, everything seemed to be good. So I said, you know what, that is just great. And then I started messing around with it, and I opened up the cover. I said, well, gee, the machine does, you know, it was exactly as the fella told me. Everything works. So I said, well, all right, great. In the interim, I'm at a customer's place, and they had a whole bunch of welding machines. I think they had come out of a tech school or something like that, and they were scrapping them. Yeah, and I happened to see this. It had been outside for a long time. You know, it was bad. The spindle was messed up here. It was really, really rough. But I saw it, and I said, they were loading it on the truck, and I said, well, what are you doing? He says, oh, we're scrapping all those old machines. I said, well, you know, look, I'll pay you whatever, you know, the $10 this thing's gonna. So he says, just take it, you know, throw it on your truck, don't worry. So I have this. So I took this. This is a 24 volt feeder. So I brought everything back. So now I've got this machine, this feeder, and this feeder. So now I've got to come to a decision, because now I went from having none to now having two of everything. So, okay, so like I said, too many machines, not enough space. I figured, you know, I'll get rid of one and keep the other, you know. So head-to-head test was what I wound up doing. So they're both supposed to be the equivalent machine. So what I wound up doing, naturally you can see this one, and then the size of this one is quite a bit smaller. So I have to assume that this was inverter based, or something. There was a lot of, I didn't see any transformers in there. I saw a lot of like capacitors in there. And but there again, this one too, CV and CC. Again, this is rated at 500 amps. This is rated at 450, obviously. But I did a head-to-head test. I essentially hooked them both up, and I started you know, checking them, and they were both okay. You know, they both ran all right. But I got to be honest with you, this one kind of seemed a little smoother when, you know, especially on the stick side, you know, and I still do a lot of stick welding, but it seemed a lot smoother than this one did on the stick. And then you know, again, testing them, you know, I wanted to check the actual capability of these things. So what I did was I turned them both up, and I got a 3/8 carbon out, and I started air arcing. And this one, you know, it would just go and hum. And this one, well, that very quickly was its end. I was air arcing along right up near the top of the range there, and I heard a whoosh, and I lifted my helmet, you know, no more arc. I lifted my helmet, the whole shop was dark, and there was just, when I turned around, I looked inside, there was just oil dripping out of the bottom of this ArcMaster 501. So I just quickly, again, I figured, you know, I'd do a quick autopsy on it, and there was a lot of capacitors in there, and one of those capacitors actually that was dripping the oil, and it, you know, it was all burned and everything. So that obviously made that decision pretty simple for me. So now I've got this, and that's why you see I you know, again, I just, as I took it apart to do the autopsy, you know, I kept the sheet metal, and like I said, the irony is this is the actual top of that machine that I said, well, you know what, let me go about adapting the you know, the feeder onto here. Now this machine has no, that's a 24 volt feeder. This machine has no 24 volts. So I did have to search, I think, again, I searched on eBay, and you can get these transformers. Actually, you can, what I did was I wound up, let's see, I wound up building it right into the machine here, because this is a 14 pin connector. I'm sorry about the darkness there. Now the nice part about that, again, this S62 feeder, the nice part about it has the 14-pin connector. I can take this thing with me on the truck and stuff if I need to. If I'm doing, you know, neat, clean indoor work or whatever, I can take this feeder with me. I have an actual extension cord, a Miller, you know, 14-pin extension. Of course, it doesn't use all of those, but I'm saying I have an extension cord that I can run it off the machine on the truck as well. So yeah, so that's what I pretty much adapted. I adapted that, and that's how I run it. And you know, the nice thing about this is, of course, all the Miller guns are the same. I have a 400 amp gun for this. I have a couple of extra M25 guns. You saw that in the video when I did the aluminum experiment. Oh yeah, I made a very simple. I made an adapter to run you know, those 10 and 11 pound spools on here if I want. So it has been great. And again, if I'm going to do any switching, I do it on that. Like I said, I can run 030, 035, whatever I want. And then this one down here, the actual Hobart feeder that came with it, I pretty much leave that set up most of the time. Well, pretty much all the time. I leave that with solid 045 wire, usually 70S6, 045 wire. And again, this has got a very heavy gun on it. You can see here, you know, this is again, and this is the original gun that it came with when it was built, you know. And again, I have to think this thing is from late 60s or the 70s or something like that. But it has just been an amazing machine. I may want to try at some point, I've heard good things about the dual shield wire, so I may start experimenting with that, you know, on here as well. I have a feeling the machine is more than capable of doing it. So that's the way that goes, and like I said, it's just been an amazing, incredible machine. I go to it now for all my stick work, you know. It's been very, very versatile, and again, I constructed it the way I did to conserve space, and it's been excellent. It's been amazing. Everything's been great. So that's that. So that covers that. Again, I know I've been promising that to a few people who have asked for a long time, but yeah, that's just awesome. Okay. Now speaking of the inverter stuff, this is a Miller Diversion 165. This is obviously an inverter, and it's just so crazy simple. I mean, I have this simply so that I can run it off the truck and go do aluminum. You're not going to do very much aluminum with it because it runs out of duty cycle very quickly. But you know, it's okay to tack something up and then, you know, finish it later, you know, with a shop style machine or something like that, you know. So I have that, and you know, it's okay, you know, it's all right. So now from there, let's go to another inverter machine, and that will also be a welder woe. Okay, this will be the last of it. This is a welder woe, I guess. This is not mine. This is an inverter machine, clearly. It's called a TIG 200 AC/DC. This is equipped to do aluminum and stuff like that. This is sold by our, you know, a local welding supply here. This is a friend of mine. A friend of mine bought this because he uses me for a lot of his welding, but he wants to be able to do some of it himself, and he didn't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, you know, to have to do that. So he bought this, and he asked me about it, and I thought it would be pretty good. So he got, obviously, as you can see, got the foot pedal. It comes with a, these all come with the, no matter whose you get, they all come with the 17 style large torch, which I'm not a huge fan of, by the way, and then with a hand control. But again, he got the foot control, which once you plug it in this Amphenol thing here, some of them have a RJ45 jack like my Miller, but once you plug the foot control in, it automatically overrides the hand control on the torch. So anyway, he bought this thing, and he hooked it up and started, trying to use it. And he said, gee, I can't get it to work. Maybe you can go over it. So I've been messing around with it, and I finally had time over this weekend to play around with it. And I've been playing around with it. It welds fine. The only thing is, I cannot get it to jump a spark. No matter what I'm in, it won't. In other words, whatever the again, I'm calling it the high frequency or the simulated high frequency, I cannot get it to work. This is a brand new machine. It has, he bought this brand new, and we just can't get it to work. I just can't. I've sat with it now for a few hours, and no matter what, it'll weld fine as long as you come along and scratch start it, or lift start it. It just, I can't get it to actually, to strike, to again, the high freak or substitute of high freak or whatever. I can't get it to actually work. Once it's welding, it welds just fine. So obviously there's some sort of a woe there. We thought it was just maybe, we weren't properly going into the ranges of this thing, but and even the manual, it came with a CD, very sketchy to get the manual in print. It's clearly done in a third world Asian country, and it's most of it is in, again, some Asian language, or it's just incredibly unclear. So I have to think there is something wrong with the machine. I've tried every range, every position. I've tried to dial in every thing I can find. I know these things are layered, that there's layers of ranges and stuff, and I've gone through that, and I just can't seem to get it to, like I said, it welds okay, but again, you have to lift or scratch start it to get it to weld. And that's either on aluminum or steel. So I don't know, I guess it'll have to go back and see what's going on with it. So that's about it. All right, and then I'll finish up with this. This is my Miller-Matic 252. This is certainly not a welder woe. In fact, if everything on the earth was built the way these Miller-Matics are built, whoa, everything would be just great. I mean, this is this is a 252. This is digital. I've had this, I guess, 3 or so years now. This replaced my Miller-Matic 200 from probably 20 years prior to that. And again, as with everything, again, you've watched my videos, I tend to overuse things a bit. No problem. No matter what you do, these things just don't seem to quit. These things are amazing. Even the Miller-Matic 200, it's just that at the time, again, I didn't have a large MIG machine, and I was getting a job in that I had to do some, I think it was 3/8 to 3/8 plate steel, and like I said, I needed, the 200. Again, it was probably 20 years old at that point. I knew that would, not be good for it, so I said, what, it's time to replace it, anyway. So I got, and of course it went through it, like water off a duck's ass. I mean, it performed flawlessly the whole time. So, these things are just amazing. So, that's about it as far as my welding gear. And of course, on the truck, that's turning into a welder woe. The engine on that thing is just about done. But I'm going to wrap this up now with that, because that'll have to be a whole separate thing. But yeah, so that's going to be it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do on the Airco here. Again, like I said, this is like an old friend, comfortable pair of slippers. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll hook it back up and see if I can do some diagnosis on it when I get a chance, because there's nothing electronic in that. That's all essentially mechanics, relays and contactors, and and I don't know if it's that the varactor has started to go. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just hook it up and I'll put the stick leads on it for now, and like I said, I'll do some systematic diagnosis as best as I can and see what I can figure out. So we'll go from there, and if it turns into something, I'll report back. All right, so again, sorry for the long time between the videos. This is probably going to be a whole lot longer than I intended it to be. My apologies. That's due to me rambling. So that's going to be it for now. We'll wrap it up here. And as some famous guy once said, everybody polka. See ya.